All right, 7:13. Serious topic here. If a child dies after being mistreated by parents or guardians, how likely is it the state or the public to even know about this? Well, Civil Beat's Chad Blair is here to talk about the reporting system. We're talking on two different levels, federal and state. And we want to start at the federal level, because what's required at the federal level?
Good morning, Grace. It's a tough story, but John Hill has been reporting on child welfare services for some time. Really good reporting. The federal act was passed in the 90s, the Child Abuse and Prevention Act, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. But what it does is it requires the states, not the federal government, to disclose more information when there's a death of a child from maltreatment. The problem is the federal law is kind of vague, so states take it upon themselves to interpret it in whatever way they wish. Some states do pretty good, according to John. Hawaii is not one of those states.
So it's kind of unbelievable how differently all the states are handling this. And we, of course, want to focus on Hawaii and a case actually out of the 90s that many people may not know about now.
Right. In fact, I'm going to bring it up to the current year, 2021. There was a child that died of COVID. And of course, the state has to release a report about that. And turns out not all the information was made public from the Department of Human Services. Years ago, this very same legal guardian of this child that died of COVID, another child died, and that child had been kicked and had been beaten. It even made the news. There were headlines. Well, how come that information wasn't in the state report about this more recent case? And you're right, it goes back to the 90s, but it's also more present day. Think about the tragic child that died in Waimanalo in custody. Another one died in Wahiawa. Clearly, the Department of Human Services is not disclosing the information that the federal act aimed for it to do.
And your journalist actually goes into the specifics of how it failed by talking to people and family members who were involved in these specific cases.
Right. He actually did a lot of digging. You have to go into the court documents. You look at the media reports that were out there. You get the autopsy reports. And so he's actually able to build a database chronicling all these different incidents over the years. Now, he tried to get DHS to speak, but no, many times they turned him down. They said, oh, there's confidentiality agreements. Oh, there's pending litigation. We can't comment. But the other reality is people are still dying and there's not enough information being disclosed to the public. Why should we know about that? To make sure these things don't happen again, to try and prevent people who may have a history of domestic violence being a legal guardian of a child.
Because one thing he points out is that once you start to find out the history between some of these alleged abuse cases and the children, it's almost unbelievable that no one would have known.
Yeah, exactly. Like this one case I mentioned was in the news, and it's not just a state problem, it is nationwide. Something like 1,800 people every year die of maltreatment, children, even though many of them involve child welfare services.
One other thing I thought was interesting that he pointed out was that you would think you would hear more about this when it goes to court, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case. But you don't. Well,
not unless you dig up the court documents, not unless you get to know the lawyers, even talking to the people that are involved. And John spent a long time trying to get people to talk about this, and sure enough, they did it. But really, why isn't the state taking care of this? Department of Human Services, Child Welfare Services. This is their responsibility under the federal act.
All right, so lots of information in the story. You should read it. It is at civilbeat.org, or you can text 66866 to get that newsletter. Chad, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Grace.
We'll be